Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Accuracy in America, brought to you by Accuracy in Academia. This is our episode number 328. I'm your host, Don Irvine from Provo, Utah, and I've got Brian McNichol, my co-host, now across the continent almost.
That's right. I'm still in lovely Reston, Virginia. Good morning, everyone. All of us preparing to go in a dark new world with no NPR, PBS.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about that. So the weather out here has been pretty good, but it's been doggone hot. I think you guys have been getting some thunderstorms and some rain. Probably hot and humid.
Yep, absolutely.
So
the run this morning was thick, man. It was like it rained last night, so when you go out, like the humidity hasn't ever left, and so you're basically running through last night's rain.
Yeah. I'm getting up and so it's about between 5:30 and 6 o'clock or 6:15 Mountain Daylight Time. I go up a couple of blocks from where my brother-in-law lives here, and there's a park called Rock Canyon Park, and so I try to walk through that and spend kind of just going in this motion, but spend up to an hour doing that. But one of the nice things about Utah is that, okay, so it's cool enough in the morning and maybe 70 degrees, and you don't have the humidity. Makes a huge difference.
Yeah,
absolutely. I try to do that back home when it's 70 degrees, but 80 or 90% humidity. I'm just like, yeah, I think after half an hour I'm done.
Yeah, it destroys your clothes, makes you tired the rest of the day. It's a deal. It's a thing. But I love it. Rather summer than any other time of year.
Yeah. So I had posted this picture yesterday, and we'll get started right after that. So that's what I get to look at in and around this area. Actually, one of the funny things too is just that interesting things. So my youngest son changed jobs, and he went from the solar industry to the crane operating industry. Okay, and I think he's probably going to be very happy he left the solar industry. The big beautiful bill is not very good for the for renewable energy.
That's right.
And the company, I think, had been, with high interest rates and all the subsidies, kind of they're going to be eliminated. We're just making it hard for solar companies to really survive and thrive like they used to.
Yeah, the big businesses that Musk is in, Trump is snipping away at every one of them. Electric cars, solar, the space program. He's reduced spending to Musk.
Yeah, take that.
Yeah.
But so I'm about 2 blocks away from what for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They have what's called the Provo Temple. They basically demolished the old one, which had been there for decades, and looked a little bit like a spaceship, or was thought to be spaceship looking by the local members around here. And they're going to build one that looks more like a lot of the other ones. They kind of have that one design that they do. Right. And when I just posted a handful of pictures, and it showed the structures going up in the steel and whatnot, and the concrete. My son sends me a message. He says, "Oh, by the way," he says that crane is one of our cranes. He says, we do all that. So I double checked. I wondered yesterday when I was walking around, and then when I went walking this morning, when I was up in that canyon, the park area, I looked and I thought, yeah, that crane is really high. I'm not sure where the crane operator sits, but my father-in-law was a low crane operator, for his career here in the United States. And I just can't imagine, as you get up higher and higher, it's just like what that is like. I mean, you're probably baking during the summer, and just the height to get up there. It's like, yeah, you would never catch me doing that.
I was like, one friend lived in Chicago. A guy I went to high school with named Bruce Walker. Some of you probably know him, but Bruce is. He asked him about like what's the worst. He worked in construction in Chicago. Like, what's the worst thing you've ever been in? He said he was hanging off a building. He's on one of those, big chain things, and in the bucket, welding stuff, and it's 5 below zero, and he can't stay there because there's so much wind. He keeps getting blown up. I'm like, wow, thank goodness for indoor jobs.
Yeah, and just one final note, at least for me, was just that for people who take a lot of these jobs, we don't understand the complexity, the dangers. A lot of times we just, a building goes up or whatever, and you're like, wow, that looks great, modern marvel, some of these things. So this, but what the blood, sweat, and tears of the workers who did that, and a lot of them at fairly high risk. I mean, there's a lot of safety measures, but nothing is perfect. Weather and other things can happen in an instant and change the fortune of that.
Oh yeah,
we've seen buildings under construction topple. All kinds of this stuff. So it's my hat's off to the people who undertake those kinds of jobs. They deserve to be well paid for taking on that risk. So Anyway, news time. All right. I know you probably have a lot more to say on Epstein. We touched on it a little bit last week, and it continues to kind of boil and bubble or whatever it is. Pam Bondi, Dan Bongino, Trump. I mean, Republicans in Congress. Try to lay this out for us, because frankly, for me, I hate the whole thing. It's like I had not paid much attention to the whole Epstein thing. I just kind of like, this is not something I really want to dig deeply into, but this has just become news again, and it become a big issue. The media's all over it. Like I said, Republicans. There's some Republicans are arguing about it. So kind of let's lay this whole thing out and give us kind of the skinny here on this.
Well, I guess the thing is the got all this started again as people started asking questions about it. Bondi said she had the file on her desk and she was going through it. And then they started going through this stuff. And for whatever reason, they said, he killed himself. There may have been someone else involved, but, he wasn't murdered. He committed suicide. And there is no client list. There's no list of people, and there's no film that he kept of people doing bad things with little girls and all this stuff. Like the open and shutness of this had been misrepresented. It's just not there, right? So, now there's this push on to say, yes, there is a list, and to mention all the names in it. So, you have people that, there's a lot of NDAs, non-disclosure agreements and all this. So most of this was handled civilly, not in criminal court. And it's because, it was more financially advantageous to the victims, which is good. They can take their blood however they want it. So there's not a lot of this is under seal. A lot of this, the people have agreed not to mention, right? They've agreed not to talk about. Alan Dershowitz says that, he's seen what passes for the list, and no current elected official is on it, including Trump. The lawyers for the girls have come out and said Trump's not on it. Trump's not on it. That's not the problem. Now, what? So why do they have this issue that they won't show whatever it is people want them to show? I think he's told Bondi to put out whatever you can put out about it, right? But you have people who have, there's a lot of this is under seal, and a lot of it that's not under seal. That it's under NDAs, it's under all kinds of things they've done to keep their names out of the news, right? These girls are, most of them are in their 20s or 30s now, and they've moved on and made a life, and they've gotten whatever they got out of this, and they're on to something else and don't want to raise it again. Now, is that a good enough reason not to do it? I don't know. I mean, it's a good, it's a good question. Like, is that a reason not to do it? And I don't know. I don't know what the deal is. My guess is you're about to see some more disclosure, something that people can sink their teeth into. But like the prurient interest in this, right? It's like I want to know who's banging who, right? I literally saw tweets like that on the internet, right? So like, yes, we need to know who the bad adults are, but if it puts the innocent kids at risk, then there's going to be questions raised about that, and there should be. I don't think that. So I think you'll see more of it come out. It's already, like all these other things people throw at Trump, and they think it's going to stagger him and knock him down and everything. He's back above 50% on Rasmussen today. His polling went down for a few days, but it's come back up. So I would not count on this being the thing that ends Trump's presidency, as people are now saying.
All right. So what about just in general then too? I mean, it's like with Pam Bondi. I mean, how do you think she's been doing a good job in handling all of this?
I mean, she went out and said the candid thing, right? I don't, people you get mad and say, well, you shouldn't be so candid, but I mean, that's what you're arguing, right? Is that, don't tell us the truth in such plain spoken terms. But, she is, I guess you could talk, criticize around the edges of it. But I mean, and the other thing is like, it's hard to blame Bondi when you know that she's doing exactly what she's told.
All right. So what's going on here with Dan Bongino? I mean, is he staying or going or what? What's happening there?
He's staying. I'm not even sure how legit it was that he was thinking of leaving, right? He's just being impatient and probably mentioned to somebody, and he's probably been straightened out by Susie Wiles now to not be mentioning anything to anybody anymore. So, I think he'll go back into his box and continue what he was doing.
Yeah. I wonder sometimes.
He thinks he's as big as this, right? Because like as a social media star, he has a lot of listeners and all that stuff too. But, he is a tiny fly in the ointment of this operation.
Right. Right. And that's kind of what I wanted to say is that, because I know Dan, I mean, when he ran for office here and everything like that. And before he really just built himself, Bongino Inc., as I'll call him, I mean, just became, kind of a mega star in the universe on social media, and, good for him. I mean, this is America, right? You go ahead and make that, and so, but I do wonder, if he wasn't kind of chafing at the bit, kind of a thing of like, wait a minute, I'm working in the government. I mean, this is a good position for me. I mean, I can use my expertise, but on the other hand, there are some rules to follow, and there's a box you have to stay in. And this is not your radio show. This is not your Twitter or X account or whatever, not your Rumble account. You have got to stay in your lane. Right. And I think I do think that he's been kind of just like, I want to say so much more and everything like that. We've got a comment coming in here.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, that's right. Me either. And, and the record of that is, I'm glad he said that, because the record of this is that Trump mentioned the Epstein. Everybody says he campaigned on this. No, he didn't. He mentioned it twice, and both times in response to questions about it. And he said, in both of the answers, if you go back and read the answers, he's like, well, we'll look at it. We'll see what's up, but he doesn't ever promise, we're going to rip these files out and show them to everybody, right? He never said that. So the idea he said he was going to do it, or Bondi said she had the list, they're not true. Like the accusation on this is not true. It's based on things that are not true.
Epstein files, Hunter Biden laptop.
Yeah. Well, yes and no, because I mean, the thing about it is like the criminals in both cases are Democrats, right? I mean, who is on the list? Who do we know? Who do we pretty much know went to the island, right? Bill Clinton, Alan Dershowitz, and Prince Andrew. Right? Do we really know? We don't really know them, but we kind of know them. Yeah. Right? Those three. Do we know anybody else? Not really, right? So it's probably, if there's a list, you probably would not recognize a whole lot of the names anyway.
Yeah. And as you said, I mean, there's a lot of this prurient interest, that gets people. It's like, I don't know. I I think as I've just become older, I'm like, what does this have to do with the administration and Donald Trump and whatever? And
Yeah.
at this point in
Economy,
time,
immigration,
yeah,
defense, foreign
right. You know,
policy.
the things that we need to really resolve and solve, except for the fact that if you're a liberal Democrat, I guess, or the news media, you're thinking like, oh, we've got something here, to try to nail Trump on, because virtually everything we've tried hasn't worked, and
Right.
they're still struggling, they're still frustrated that, Trump by and large has, despite Trump's, kind of erratic behavior on some things, he still kind of cuts through and gets things done. And is,
Right.
it's driving the Democrats nuts. It's driving the
That's right.
media nuts.
Right. And that's what's going on here is Trump is on a major roll, and they got to do something to disrupt it, or they don't have a whole lot of chance in the midterms now, but what little chance they have is fading quickly.
Right. So this will be a good segue to what you mentioned earlier, which is it being on a roll. It looks like the rescissions package. I mean, it has to be passed, I guess, and ready to go by Friday. So tomorrow, right? But the Senate did pass it. Murkowski and Collins voted against it in the Senate, but they still had enough votes to get it through.
And they flipped McConnell. McConnell was a no and became a yes.
Yeah, so that's kind of interesting. Now, and they didn't get to cut PEPFAR, I guess, in the package. But as you alluded to, there's NPR. I don't know, the clock is ticking. I'm really amazed at this, in the sense that if that lands on Trump's desk, right, and you see this funding cut, you've got the head of NPR is like, I don't understand what I don't understand this liberal bias thing. It's like, you're just, you cut your head.
She's like, can someone show me an example? And I'm like, I know that, like, in the AIM files, there are voluminous examples, and I can guarantee you in the MRC files, there are voluminous examples. And think about it, is like the other one, the funniest one though about all this is, so their funding is on the line, right? That's coming up to the votes before Congress, right? So they have this big flood in Texas. And it's a perfect example for NPR to go around and tell everybody about the flood and prove its worth in this rural part of Texas, right? Which is not really all that rural, but that's just beside the point. But anyway, so what actually happens though is, they didn't even break out of their, the government people are coming on and saying, the river's out of its banks. The people downstream are in dire danger. They need warnings right now. And all the private stations that could reach that area dropped what they were doing and broadcast, get the heck out of the river, right? Or away from the river, because it's about to flood. But not NPR. They stayed with it was Morning Edition. They just kept running Morning Edition. And then, like, they had a guy, the sheriff of Kerr County handling the, where everybody should go, the sheltering, all that kind of stuff. And, all the private news outlets called him, you give us the update, give us what you can give us, right? NPR, no one lifted a finger. So, to say you're necessary during the storms, and you don't lift a finger during the storms, you don't even break away from All Things or Morning Edition to tell people to run away for their lives, right? Then you really don't need that money, right? You're not doing the thing that you told us is vital that we keep funding.
Yeah. And so this is, this is an interesting thing to get this rescissions package through. And they're going to have to they have to push hard to get it done here. But it looks like, based on, I think even the media is thinking that, this is pretty much a done deal, and that Trump will get this, and it'll be yet another, feather in his cap, another victory.
Yeah.
And, the fact that I have been waiting decades to see any kind of cut in funding to NPR of any kind. Reagan tried, they've been trying without success, and somehow Trump has managed to get this through, despite the objections of all those Democrats who just keep trying to torpedo things, and it's just about to happen. I'm in just complete amazement. I think my father
50-year
would
battle.
be shocked.
Yeah, your father would be shocked because it's been going on 50 years.
Yeah,
you know, and it's been you know, and they've been warned, right? They've been warned repeatedly. You know, you're way too leftist. The country sees you as way too leftist. They don't see you as responsive to everyone. You know, because we always kind of understood that was to the left, but if it's not too extreme, no one cares, right? But it got more and more extreme and hateful, and you know, the anti-Trump, just virulently, meanly anti-Trump. And then, you know, they had the guy last spring, Uri Berliner, veteran producer at NPR, wrote an essay that said, you know, everybody in my office, all 87 people who work at NPR Washington are registered Democrats. Like you can't get balanced news like that. Our charter says it has to be balanced, and it's 87 to nothing. Okay. And then, you know, I can see us in the programming we're putting out. We're moving away from the mainstream. We're getting into areas that our audience is not following us, right? Because they're all obviously, you know, as you know, green tree loving leftists, right? Tree huggers and whatnot, right? It's not the radical street people, right? It's not the Mondami gang, right, in New York, you know. So, you know, they're moving the audience that way. I mean, they're moving the rhetoric that way, okay, toward those people, toward the radical extreme. And so they got caught on it. They didn't do anything about it. They thumbed their nose at it. They sent the CEOs of PBS and NPR to a congressional hearing where they were completely grilled, and they just, you know, arrogantly said, no, we're not biased, and you don't know what you're talking about, and where do y'all get these crazy ideas, and so forth. And so Congress is like, well, we're going to show you where we get the crazy ideas. And you know, tomorrow, this time tomorrow, they'll lose, you know, what is it, about it's like $1 billion over 2 years or something. So
yeah, it's pretty significant hit.
It doesn't wipe them out. It doesn't put them off the air, but you know, they're going to have to hold a couple more fundraisers. That's for sure.
Yeah. You know, it's an NPR is a case in point of just with a lot of the media in general, where you probably have some of the, you know, friends who are smart. I mean, well educated. They're not necessarily overly political. They watch the news and whatnot, but they kind of grew up trusting the news. You know, whether or not it was CBS, ABC, NBC, and NPR gets thrown in that bucket a lot because, I mean, how many times have I seen people post things on social media that are pretty, you know, that I consider to be pretty good conservatives, people that I know, and then they'll say, well, NPR reported this, and I'm like, you know, you're starting to get sucked into the really far left universe. You don't understand who these people are.
Right.
So, you know, if they've got to kind of downsize their ship there, and actually their influence is lessened as a result of this, you know, that'll be a good thing for all of us, because they pound away and pound away and pound away, and it's just frustrating to think that our money, you know, our taxpayer dollars go to fund these things, and we have been
left-wing rhetoric, right?
Yeah,
we should not. It would be one thing. It's not that like you have to agree with everything they say, right? But when they're virulently left-wing and you're saying, hey, you know, hey, conservatives, pay for this. Like, no, that's tyranny. No, we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, it's just I didn't. You know, I don't get a chance to vote directly for funding. I just hope that the people I vote for will get elected and will take a stand. But we finally got to the point where we had just enough Republicans in the House and the Senate, and a president who, you know, made a big push for this, and everything, you know, everything seemed to kind of line up that for the first time, you know, they were able to get it to the finish line. So that in and of itself is a remarkable feat. Another thing that kind of trying to think of how to phrase this, but I guess, you know, the news was full yesterday too of this kind of back and forth on the Fed chair, Jerome Powell. So Jay Powell has been under fire. I mean, Trump was the one who first appointed him, as a Fed chair, and you know, there's he's mentioned, always he's been threatening to fire him for a while, and then made a statement, and then I never know which way Trump is going. Powell's term is up next year, I think next May or something like
He
that.
said he had 8 months.
8 months or so, somewhere, so maybe February. I don't
Trump
know.
said I get a new one in 8 months.
Yeah. I mean, look, it doesn't really hurt him to wait this out, because he gets into some murky legal challenges, the way this is set up, if he does things early, just a lot of things. The way the economy is doing okay. I mean, at this point in time, I mean, but Trump is not the economist. He's not the guy who understands all the numbers and all the
His
things.
Treasury Secretary said this week that he's by far the most economically literate president we've ever had.
Well, that's good. I'm glad for that. But I think he's just I think he's irrational sometimes in just saying interest rates should be here, and there isn't proof to me, based on the way the economy is going, that interest rates need to go that much lower yet. I am still the kind of guy who's like, I still want to see another month or so of data to be able to say whether or not that's a time for a cut, because it takes so long for things to work through the economy, especially when you're dealing with these up and down tariffs, that inventory that stores have, now there is probably starting to finally get to inventory that has been tariffed to some degree or another. So once you get to that, then you can kind of see, whether or not the costs are getting pushed up. Are the Walmarts of the world going to eat some? Are the manufacturers, eating some of that cost increase?
Well, I mean, so far, you got what PPI was out yesterday. It's 1.4 or 1.6 and falling. So inflation's 1.7 now and falling. So it's below the middle.
That low. I thought the top line, the number I saw.
There was a top line that somebody put out, the Labor Department, somebody that said 2.6 yesterday, 2.7, but they came, but like 4 more came out after that saying that it was below 2, and that they appear to be, DOL appears to be rigging it. So, or whoever puts it out, I don't know, who knows, but I mean, PPI is well below 2. It has been for months, which means it doesn't really make a lot of sense that the rate of inflation would still be above 2, right? If the PPI is guessing the prices a month ahead, I mean, they're not off by a full point, or they shouldn't be. So it's like the other thing the other day that, ADP puts out an unemployment based on, how many paychecks they write. And then, the Bureau of Labor Statistics came out and said unemployment rate was twice as good. They were doing twice as good as they said. So there is a crisis in the country about getting the statistics right, because it's warped for political gain. Probably both sides doing it to some extent. But yeah, you're in an economy where the reason that Trump is pushing this, though, is that we're about to have to sell a lot of bonds to cover debt. And if you can get the bond price down, that's an enormous savings to the country. And as far as Trump is concerned, the fundamentals say that it should be lower. And, this guy is costing us billions and billions of dollars out of spite. And he may be right about that.
Yeah. So I went back there because I hadn't seen the PPI number. Actually, I was kind of busy running around. So I'm reading a story from realinvestmentadvice.com. I don't know where they're, but anyway, they said the headline PPI for the last 3 months is averaged near 0%, while the core PPI is less than 0.1%. Year over year, PPI is down to 2.3%. So it's still, that's not a bad number, by any stretch of the imagination. But I don't know. I mean, I prefer to leave these things to the comments. Look, the Federal Reserve is not perfect by any stretch of imagination. And there's probably something in between. Do interest rates need to be exactly where they are now? Maybe not. Maybe throw them a 0.25% cut. And see what happens and see how it reacts. Don't have to make any big cuts and kind of move towards that. But it's most likely that we don't get a cut for July, but maybe for the following meeting they'll finally say, okay, everything seems to be in order and we'll go there. I think if we still get these kind of numbers going forward, then I think interest rate cuts should be on the table. It should be happen. And then I think that it's a strong case for Trump that that Powell is not managing the Fed very well at all.
So I will say this before you do this is Trump is there's Powell has some problems with his mortgage, right? He apparently misled about where he lives in order to get a better mortgage deal. So Trump could be, Powell may not make it. He may have criminal charges before his term is up.
Let me see. I haven't heard that thing.
Yeah, he's got kind of the same problem that Tish James does. He kind of said something it would be his principal home, so he could get a loan for it that he wouldn't otherwise get. Rescission, a useful symbolic move in terms of the target. Yes, it is. It is basically a symbolic move if you do one, right? And you start showing you can pick stuff off. But, Trump is talking about doing 7 or 8 of these before the midterms. If that happens, then, you could have, then it could be a political earthquake. So it'll be interesting if they can get that together. This was pretty knockdown, drag out process. And it looks like they're going to prevail by the narrowest of margins. But, do you want to go knock down, drag out for weeks at a time, narrowest of margins for the entire, remaining time of this Congress? This is the question. Maybe you have to.
I'm trying to find out something about the mortgages. So I am seeing just the thing about the Fed, building and everything. This actually until I saw that story the other day, I'm like, Fed has got 3 buildings. I thought they had 2 buildings.
Right.
I'm like, okay, that's like this.
That's another one. Is he's like, he's overseeing this construction project that's way, way overrun.
Yeah, I have a general problem with that anyway. How many projects have you ever seen that actually comes at or under budget any government level?
We didn't hire this guy to run construction projects.
No, you
can't really.
He's not the guy that's putting on the hard hat and in the construction.
Looking at the plans. 4 more bricks over here.
Yeah, so blaming him for that is a little, it's just that's stretching it a little bit. All right, I also want to just talk really briefly about the New York mayor's race because and you briefly mentioned Mondami. So we've got Cuomo wants to run on this independent party ticket of some sort. We've got Eric Adams. We've got Kersley was a Republican. We've got Mondami as the Democrat nominee. So I think Cuomo said that if the polls don't look favorable to him in September, he would drop out. But I don't know if that would be too little too late for an Eric Adams, and whether or not this is now set up that Mondami will win this race, in the fall, that there are too many people in this race. They'll be able to split the vote enough, and Mondami doesn't need a lot of votes to win. I don't know.
Well, when I was growing up in Louisiana, when I first got to vote, right, they would have these primaries. We were the first ones to do the jungle primary, right? So everybody's in one primary, the top 2 go, right? It was generally 1 Republican and 8 Democrats. And the 1 Republican was almost guaranteed a spot in the runoff because the 8 Democrats split the vote. Well, here you have 3 Democrats and 1 Republican. So when I look at this, it's like, I don't know, how good a campaigner Sliwa is. He's definitely talking about the issues New Yorkers care about, but they've also turned him down 2 or 3 times, right? He's run for mayor This is not his
Yeah,
first
I mean,
race.
he's like the perennial. He's like Alf Landon almost. And
Well, he's not quite to that level, but yeah, he's not a gadfly. He's a
yeah,
serious candidate.
he is. He is. He
But
continues to run.
but
But
he's also a proven. It has been well established that it's possible for him to lose a race. Okay, I think we can agree on that, right?
the registration numbers are so far against him. It's tough. He's running.
Although they're getting better. Like New York, like every other jurisdiction in the country, is moving to the right.
Yeah.
So
it needs to move a lot further to the right.
Right. They're not there yet, but it is moving in that direction.
It's like Montgomery County. I mean, come on. It's like if Montgomery County started to move to the right, it would take like 30 years at least before they got to the point where a Republican probably win.
Well, I mean, it's if they don't start moving to the right, it'll take even longer, right? So you see what I'm saying? Is it possible to be the one guy who's for keeping the streets orderly and let all the other people who are not for that run against each other? Could he pull that off? I don't know. Maybe, but I don't know. I think that, there's a lot of money and so forth in New York that are against Mandami. A lot of the big money people are scared to death. So I don't know if that's justified, but that's where they are right now. So you could see. Yeah, that's right. That's about right.
Yeah, I wonder about that. Yeah, this is. I mean, I think there are a lot of eyes on this race because of, who Mandami is. And then I saw there was a report of some video that had surfaced. Like if he ran out of money, he would just use his parents' money or something like that. His parents would support him, and a lot of people just, they just raked on him for that. It's like, oh yeah, this is socialist. That's great. This is. You don't care who, you'll use other people's money. This is, and all of this. And then there's apparently a mayor, is it a mayoral candidate in Minnesota who's basically trying to take the same playbook, as Mandami. And I'm like, oh, it's like, this could be bad.
Yeah, that guy's nuts too.
He
explicitly blames white people for all the world's problems.
Yeah, I mean, so this is going to be interesting. I mean, I don't know. I mean, Cuomo's got, he's playing on his name, but he's got so much baggage.
Cuomo's a non-factor. He's not going to win. I think he will drop out in September. I mean, he got trounced. It wasn't close. Yeah,
I think he needs to put his ego aside and say that if he's interested in making sure that Mandami doesn't win and for the betterment of New York City, he needs to drop out, throw support to like Eric Adams or something like that, so they can coalesce and they have a shot to do that. I don't. Sligo will get votes. I just don't think there's just enough votes there to beat Mandami. But in a three-way race, it could be. I mean, just like a four-way, it would be interesting to see how much support he does, because there will always be disaffected people who look at the candidates and say, nope. Right. I really don't know this.
And this is not a Republican who looks like Thurston Howell, right?
Yeah.
This is a Republican who looks like a Democrat, in a lot of ways.
All right. Yeah. So I hopefully those people that actually wind up watching this program know who Thurston Howell is. I love it when we throw out these cultural references from the 1960s.
Right.
It does my heart good.
Yeah. Google him.
Yeah, Google him. Yeah, Google him. Yeah. And once again, yeah, and also go and find a TV. Find one of those networks, those streaming networks that plays Gilligan's Island. You'll love it.
Yeah, that's great show.
That TV when TV was fun and not political. And everything. All right. So since I'm on vacation, I don't want to spend a ton of time out here doing this. I'm being lazy. Let's go ahead and just go to the final topics here. So I saw a report that Governor Newsom wants to redistrict California. He was looking at Texas, which I guess is considering doing something to bolster the Republican numbers. So he wants to redraw the map in California. But I understand that that's an idea that's not going very far.
Well, I mean, the point of it is you redo the census, not allowing non-U.S. citizens to be counted, and then you do it, right? And so I think he's trying to jump the gun and do it before that count comes in for pretty obvious reasons. So, it's hard to imagine California Democrats cheating any more in California than they already do. What did they take 87 days to count the votes in the Prezi? What were you counting for 87 days? Right? You were getting those 4 Orange County people across the finish line, right? I mean, it's blatant corruption and nobody can do anything about it.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on, because I'm not there in California exactly to see what's going on with the voting. But the fact that that it does take a long period of time in order to get to settle the races. That's something that the governor should be trying to fix.
Right.
If he's really interested in fair, honest, and open election, rather than this whole redistricting thing. Plus the fact
that's a feature, not a bug to them. They want that.
Yeah. They're already facing, an exodus, right? I mean, they've had people leave the state because of high taxes, regulation, all this kind of stuff. And, they lost a congressional seat the last time around, and they were projecting, I guess they could continue to lose if that trend continues. So I think from a political standpoint, you want to make sure to stop all that bleeding, so that you don't lose that, because it's so heavily Democrat in terms of the delegation. The Democrats are the ones that are going to wind up losing seats, not the Republicans that are in Congress over there.
That's right.
In all likelihood. So I don't know. I mean, for a guy who's angling towards a 2028 nomination, what is he doing to show anybody that he's got any leadership potential to lead the United States of America?
Newsom?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's trying to, the thing about it is like he's trying so hard to create like a profile, to look presidential and so forth. And it just be who you are, right? The idea that you're trying to look a certain way is insincere on the face of it. And people notice that and they see it and you can't get away from it. He'll never get over, eating at the French Laundry when the whole state was on COVID lockdown, right? I mean, it just, you're sitting there at one of the best restaurants in the state, doing whatever, it's not you're not going to convince any more people than you have. Right. And they will, the Democrats are not sold on him either. Right. They're still trying to run Mayor Pete and God knows who else, That's the other thing is like, they don't have anything approaching a credible candidate.
Yeah, I mean, Newsom is. They're term limited, right? So, I think, I don't know. I can't. Anyway, could you? I wouldn't be surprised that. If when he reaches the end of his term or whatever, that if Kamala doesn't try to throw her hat in the ring for that or something like that, as she tries to which would be just like, okay, we're not trading anything better for anything better here. It's just really bad.
What would they do? Because you don't really want her. She's damaged goods in a lot of ways. Not just that she got smoked in an election, but that she had $3 billion and there's nothing to show for it.
Yeah,
the donors. That's the part that got the donors. It's like, man, you had stacks, and we don't even know where it went. We know you gave Beyonce $10 million to talk for 3 minutes, not even sing a song. You got all the you didn't know what you were doing.
Yeah, that's the thing too. The Democrats. They were really kind of giddy about all the cash that was flowing into Harris after the switch, and thinking that, okay, now we got it. There's all this cash is showing that there was a desire to move to her from Biden, which and then she should be able now, with all this cash, she ought to be able to beat Trump, fairly handily. And that whole thing just blew up. And she proved that she was just a terrible candidate and squandered money, and it was a bad look all the way around for the Democrats. And I think there are a lot of Democrats who, whether or not they're on a national level or state level, are kind of still like, yeah, we want separation here. We're keeping our hands away here. We don't really want anything to do with you. You're damaged goods, and so you can prove that you're a credible candidate on any level.
Right. You're going to have to prove something. It's going to be hard to prove it without, if they're never going to give any money to run. It's hard to prove you'd be a good candidate. You know what I mean? This is like the same problem me and you have. No one's giving us any money to run. We might be really good.
Yeah. And I ran for office.
You did?
Yeah, back in 2010. So it's like, that's when you find, I didn't like asking for money, which was already a negative for a politician. I was dragged into running for office, but it was an interesting experience nevertheless, and just showed, at least in Montgomery County, that you can put almost any name on the ballot as a Republican, and you will get pretty much a set number of votes, because the Republicans that do vote will pretty much all vote for the Republican candidate, whether or not they know him or not. And then you might get a few independents, and that'll be pretty much the end of your run. But you won't, unless you do something really amazing and raise a ton of money, for a media campaign, you're not going to be able to overcome the Democrat machine in Maryland, in Montgomery County, et cetera. That's just not going to happen. So another California thing that came up too, I just saw, was that the Trump administration is yanking the money, the unspent money, I guess, on this California high-speed rail.
Right.
So, this is a project that was like over 800 miles at this inception, and it was now down to 171 miles, and they really still haven't done much with the money, right? I mean,
right. It's well into the like 50, 60 billion dollars. They have nothing to show for. I remember when I was on the Hill, my boss practically begging Jim Oberstar, who was, handed out the transportation money at the time, to give them $900 million for the metro expansion, Silver Line. And just like the groveling that had to happen there. I mean, I just happened to be sitting, like it was me, my boss, and Oberstar. So I heard the whole conversation. And the way that you had to talk to these guys was terrible. And he didn't get all the money he wanted, because that's why the track is Silver Line's above ground, right? They remember over, not under, not over, and all that stuff. So, which is a generational mistake. If you go look at what happened in Tyson's Corner as a result of that, you're going to have these big railroad trestles in your face for 100 years that you didn't have to have, but, they were short-sighted and it'll never be fixed. So, now you're back into, you're trying to get appropriations for this. You can't get it,
Yeah, I mean, in general, the subway is mostly underground.
Yeah, right. It's supposed to be. And then, but so now you're talking about, but at least the above ground track did get built. It's open now. People are using it. But this thing, they've given all this money, and they haven't shown any progress. Because like one of the things that Oberstar asked about was, what's been done already? What was done since the last time you got money? Are you guys moving forward with this in a timely manner? If we give this money, will some voters somewhere get benefit out of it before we're all dead and gone? And yeah, they did. That Silver Line's open now. So, but these guys cannot show that progress. They can't show any progress at all. They show like why you don't let big government do these kind of things. Yeah,
I think I saw that there was, on one part of the line, there was a $7 billion funding gap. They can't. The costs are out of control. They can't get it. They just can't get anything done. So you get a little work gets done, a lot of money gets spent, but they're nowhere near building anything that that you can put a train on.
Right, and no track whatsoever.
Yeah, and
no track and no train. You got a heck of a railroad there, buddy.
I think that if they'd had that money, what are they going to wind up with? They wind up with maybe a 5-mile track. It's like, hey, look, we got high-speed rail between here to here, San Diego to LA or something, or whatever it is.
San Francisco to Oakland.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, well, that would be like building light rail in Oakland or something like that. It's just, our government, these governments are just, they're in love with light rail, which costs a ton of money. And, it's great for the homeless people who will ride it end to end and all kinds of stuff. And it's not really all that safe, and it's definitely not cost efficient. And it just costs the taxpayers so much money.
That's right.
And once again, purple line in Montgomery County. Governor Hogan, why did you push that through in the end? You could have let that sucker die, but no, you had to do it. And we're still paying for it. And we're still not near the end of this thing.
Right. You're much closer to the beginning than you are to the end.
Yeah. All right. Also, I thought it was interesting because we saw that you don't need to take your shoes off to go through standard screening at TSA, which I think is great. And now Kristi Noem, Secretary Noem, is now throwing out the idea potentially of adjusting the liquids rule, which has been 3.4 ounces for what seems forever. And I would be delighted to see that. I mean, I would think that technology has advanced enough that they can figure out what's dangerous and what's not,
right.
For these things, and that you don't need 3.4 ounces is, it's like this.
Yeah.
So, is there a lot of difference between carrying something like this or something, maybe like that or whatever? I don't know. I mean, you go from 3.4 to say 7 or whatever, with that, because you look at package sizes of a lot of stuff in stores and you're going to see a lot of 6 and 7 ounce stuff. Yeah. I mean, if something is completely sealed up and whatever, I mean, where's the harm in that necessarily? So I don't know. But I think
with the shoe thing. So when that happened, me and Lori were in the air. In fact, we were flying from Pittsburgh to Houston to get on a plane in Houston and go to Shreveport. I was going to introduce her to my family for the very first time. So this is, 2001, Christmas of 2001, December 22nd, 2001. And they made us all go out of the airport and come back in and check our shoes. So I was among the very first people ever to get my shoes checked at the airport. We were like, huh, what? And then you got, people went to the TVs that are everywhere and they're like, oh yeah, some dude with a bomb in his shoes. It's like, get smart,
What if you're wearing flip-flops or sandals? It's like they say, they still think you can get a bomb into your sandal, your flip-flop.
Yeah.
How about those? I grew up wearing cheap, flip-flops when I was a kid. I mean, it's like, yeah, this is, you're really pushing it if we've got to deal with the shoe issue. Yeah, and for as long as it has been that we've had to deal with this, it's like this is long overdue. So
yeah,
this is another Trump administration move that has been long overdue, I think.
Yeah, they've done a lot of just like common sense stuff people wanted fixed, and it's been great.
All right. So then the last thing I want you to address, because you're Mr. Baseball for us, and that was the whole All-Star game. And history was made in that sense, the way they ended that. So I want Mr. Baseball to give us a comment about that.
Comparative flask. Wait a minute, you got to give me the flask thing again. Whatever Kristi Noem said.
Yeah.
Well, that's right.
Yeah.
There
is that.
Yeah. It ought to be pointed out. So we were. What was the new question?
It was the All-Star game. How they finished the game.
I don't like all that quacky stuff. It's like play some ball. Both teams had pitchers left. Play another color. You putting a guy on second base. You got the best hitters in baseball. Somebody's going to score in an inning or two, right? But just to come up with some clown performance for it, I thought disrespected the game. I know other people probably liked it, but I was completely disappointed in that.
Yeah. So here's my final thing on this too is just that baseball is a great game, and baseball doesn't need to try to imitate other sports.
Right. It doesn't need gimmicks. Like we always laugh at the soccer people, right? They play this game up and down the field, and then when it ends up tied, then they go just play kickball, try to kick it past the guy, right? What they call penalty kicks, PKs. Okay, so I mean that's not soccer. It has nothing to do with soccer, right? It's just a freak skill, and so and this is kind of that. And it's I thought it was disgusting. That's right too.
I mean Schwarber won it because he hit the 3 home runs or whatever, right?
Yeah, on 40-mile-an-hour pitches. Great job, buddy. I mean, Just like
baseball,
quit
they need
debauching the games. Quit ruining the games. The games are beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, we've gotten used to the tweak on the pitch clock and stuff like that, and
Yeah,
the
I get
robot.
that one. I mean, I still think it's probably 3 or 4 seconds short.
Yeah,
but I live with it. We can live with that one. That did make things better, right? There was a lot of scratching and walking around that didn't need to happen.
Yeah,
but this is not. You're preemptively saying, we got a runner on second, but we cannot score a run in so many innings that everybody will be mad. Just let them bring a pitcher back, right? And some pitcher haven't been used or whatever.
There have been great all-star games that have gone way into the extra innings.
Yeah, the Pete Rose, he wiped out Ray Fosse. What was that, like the 16th inning, right?
Yep, and pretty much ended Fosse's career.
Yeah,
at that time. So, yeah, no, we've seen a lot. We're us geezers. All right, everyone. My final nit to pick, and this is not for commentary, for rebuttal necessarily, but so just as I ordered 2 new toilets to be delivered by Costco. They were on sale. I've got a couple of toilets that were builder's grade in the house, so they were like 25 years old. Ordered them. They didn't come at the expected delivery date. I'm checking online. UPS has got this thing. It's like, label's been generated, but nothing else. So I call Costco, and then they track it down. They said, well, there were so many orders to the manufacturer, they just got overwhelmed, which makes sense. It's Costco,
Right.
People order through Costco, and they tend to overwhelm somebody's system. So they said, but they're catching up, and they'll get it. So then I'm checking UPS wrap, all the time, because I was leaving on this trip. They were supposed to deliver these toilets under the original order the day before I left, right? So then I knew that was going to be a no-go. So then I'm watching, and then they say, okay, now we have possession of it, and you can change your delivery date. And I'm like, I go online, and I pay $10, and I change the delivery date to the day after I get back. Fine. I'm fine with that. I got $100 off of each toilet, $10 to change the delivery date. So it's not sitting outside of my house for a week is fine. 2 days ago, I get a notification from UPS and Costco. Your package is being delivered today. I'm like, what? I paid you $10. It showed in the system that a delivery request was scheduled, and it was scheduled only about 5 hours after it showed up in their system. Surely, for something that was if I was going to ask for a redelivery for a week later, you could make that work in your system.
There's 2 toilets sitting on your front door.
Yeah. So then I had to put my young missionaries on watch it. We said, I got a problem. I got to kind of get them moved. My wife calls my neighbor, and then she goes, your packages are here. She goes, I can move them. We're like, those are toilets. You shouldn't be carrying them anywhere. So we sent our young missionaries over to go move them to her garage for a week. I'm just like, total fail as far as I'm concerned by UPS. Anyway, but that's my nit to pick. Could have been, never should have happened.
I was just thinking about like having 2 toilets sitting on your porch for a week.
Well,
People
I'm sure
come up to burglarize the house, and they're in
a box, but I mean they're all over by the garage side. But still, they're going to be fairly decent size. My neighborhood is safe, but with the weather and everything else, I don't want them out in the rain. Nevertheless. So it's just like, I can't believe, they provide you with these ways of taking advantage of it, and then they don't follow through. It's just completely frustrating to me that we had to go and scramble around and say, great, because I do try to make sure that we order nothing that is ever delivered during a time we're going to be away. Right. And yet that the system sometimes fails you. All right. Anyway, thanks a lot, everybody, for joining us today. Hope you enjoyed it. Appreciate it. Please, as always, stay safe and stay well. Remember, we live in the greatest country in the world. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. And God bless America. We'll see you again next week. And I guess we'll be dressed something like this again.
That time.
All right, we'll see you.